would it be practical to pursue a bachelor's degree in architecture coming from a completely different profession? I have a pharmacy degree at the age of 30. So I always find that those that have no background in architecture always have kind of a great unfair advantage because you have In this week's Ask an Architect, we have a question from a viewer. Hey Ashley, would it be practical to pursue a bachelor's degree in architecture coming from a completely different profession? I have a pharmacy degree at the age of 30. Well, it's not impossible for sure, and I would not let the age get to you. If this is something you truly are passionate about and you love architecture and you have a curiosity for it, don't let being 30 get in the way, and don't let the fact that you don't have an undergrad in architecture be the factor of not getting into the industry. Don't let that, because it's not a problem. Yes, it's a long journey, but when you really love what you do, it's not an issue. Like, I went through the process. It took me 15 years or 15 to 16 years, and I wouldn't take it back. I would do it over again. And if you ask any other architect, they would have a similar answer as well. So don't let that discourage you from going forward. Now, is it practical to pursue a career in architecture? This is completely up to you. How do you feel about it? Is this something that you're passionate about for the rest of your life, potentially? Do you have the curiosity there? What are your intentions and how do you feel about it? What exactly is the reason why you want to get into architecture? And so that you have to dig in within yourself and see what are your reasonings for it. And don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about being 30 or if you are 40 or whatever age it might be. Don't let that be one of the reasons stopping you from pursuing your passion or from pursuing a career that's perhaps not something that you started in the beginning with. That's okay. It's completely fine. Now, doing a bachelor's degree in architecture without a background in architecture. Now, you don't have to do a bachelor's, because I noticed you said, is it practical to pursue a bachelor's degree in architecture? You don't have to, because remember, you already have a degree. So in this case, you have a pharmacy's degree, and I'm assuming that's a bachelor's degree, and I'm assuming as well it was a 4-year degree. If that's the case, you don't have to go and do a bachelor's degree in architecture and then a master's, because in Canada, it's important to note that none of the undergrads, none of the bachelor's in architecture, the professional degrees, are accredited. None of them are. So you're going to need to do a master's degree. So you can skip that process. You don't have to do a bachelor's degree in architecture. You can jump into doing a professional master's degree in architecture. And make sure that that program is accredited by the CACB, so that ensures that you can potentially become licensed. And the nice thing about it is, if you're not sure if you want to become a licensed architect, but you want to get into architecture, that's great. Just take it step by step. I would first get your education. Go through your master's in architecture, and there are 4 schools that you could apply to that take in students without a background in architecture. And so these are interdisciplinary schools. So you have Carleton University, University of Toronto, UBC, and I'm missing one. I wouldn't be worried about the fact that you have no background in architecture. I went to UBC, and it's an interdisciplinary program. There are many students enrolled in the master's degree that had no background in architecture, actually the majority of them. And some of them came from philosophy backgrounds, engineering, although engineering and architecture are quite similar. But there are other people that were artists, whatever it might be. They all came from different walks of life. And that's the beautiful thing of architecture, is that as an architect, you need to know a little bit about everything. The more diverse your background is, and the more diversity and knowledge you have in any field, the better it is. The richer your ideas can potentially be, because you have that exposure to so many different disciplinary backgrounds. And so you have actually an unfair advantage. I always find that no architecture background is the best, because you're going into it with no biases. You know, potentially, you might know a little bit about architecture, I'm not saying, but you're going in with kind of a fresh mindset, with no attachment or no professional experience in architecture, and no background as well. So you're starting kind of like a new chapter. And so I always find that those that have no background in architecture always have kind of a great unfair advantage because you have no biases. You really have more creative freedom because you didn't have that kind of background in architecture and limitations as well. So you're a lot more free in a way to explore and to test. So don't see it as something negative, but rather see something extremely positive. And honestly, I wish that I did my master's in architecture with no background in architecture, because I feel like I would have pushed the boundaries a lot further. And I try, even today, to question everything and not take it for what it is, but really question the simplest things that we might just take for what it is because it's been around for so long in the field. So just remember that and really don't feel you're at a disadvantage because you're not. And when I went to UBC, I went to UBC with many other students and colleagues that had no background in architecture. And honestly, they caught up as quickly to those who had a background in architecture, because really all you really need is to have some software knowledge. And don't worry, because they will help you through that process. But of course, if you could begin to learn a little bit about the programs and softwares, that always helps, because those are your tools to then explore things. But once you have that, you're at the same level and playing field as someone with a background in architecture. So again, don't see it as a negative thing. By doing a professional master's degree with your already bachelor's degree outside of architecture, but still it's a bachelor's degree, you're looking at another 3 years. A lot of the programs are about 3.5 years, depending on where you plan to go. But you're just adding another 3.5 years to your education. And then you can get started in the internship program, you can begin to collect your experience, and you can get hands-on experience in the industry. And if you're thinking about getting licensed or potentially not, I would still begin the internship process and collect those hours, because again, you can't backlog any hours. And so you might as well begin logging those hours. You have those hours logged in and banked. And then you can, if you decide later on that you don't want to become a license, because again, remember, you don't have to be licensed to work in the industry. You can work as an intern architect. You can work as a designer. You can be a technologist. There's so many things you can do within architecture. And you can even think of going into the law side of architecture, which is a whole other thing as well. So there's so much within architecture that you don't have to get a license. As long as you're working under another certificate of practice or another studio, you don't have to really get licensed. But if you do decide it, I would still begin the internship process, begin logging those hours so that you keep your options open, and then you can make the decision later on. So I hope this answers your question. If you do want more clarification, just let me know down below. And if you have questions as well about anything about architecture, about the career of architecture, if you have any specific questions, let me know down below and I will answer it during the next session of Ask an Architect. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure to like the video. And if you would like to see more content from the latest series, you can check out this video here. I hope to see you on the next video. Until then, bye!